My name is Grace, and I'm a 35-year-old financial advisor. It was during this time that I met Jonathan, who would eventually become my ex-husband. I can still remember our first encounter vividly. He walked into my office, weighed down by a stack of paperwork and an expression that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "Grace, right?" he asked, extending his hand. "I'm Jonathan. I've been told you're the expert when it comes to financial dilemmas." With a smile, I replied, "That's what they say. Let's take a look and see if we can untangle yours." Jonathan was tall, with short brown hair that framed his face, and his warm, friendly eyes always seemed to be smiling, even when his lips didn't. As we dug through his financial documents, our conversation shifted from numbers and taxes to movies, music, and even heated debates about the best pizza in town. His relaxed demeanor made time fly, and soon enough, he said, "I never imagined sorting out my finances could be this fun." Joking, I told him it was my magic touch, and he laughed, then suggested, "How about a coffee to thank you for making this experience far less dreadful than I expected?" That coffee led to dinners and weekend getaways. In just 7 months, Jonathan proposed, and without hesitation, I said yes. It felt like a whirlwind romance, but it was perfect for us. Our wedding was simple, yet magical. As we exchanged vows, I truly felt like I had found my partner for life. Jonathan's mother, Mary, was there too, her stern expression softening as she whispered about her eagerness for grandchildren. At first, married life was idyllic. Jonathan pursued his real estate career, while I stayed at my firm. We enjoyed quiet dinners, movie nights, and leisurely walks. But gradually things began to change, particularly when the topic of children started coming up more frequently, mostly due to Mary. Her casual remarks about grandchildren turned into an ongoing campaign, with phone calls asking about my pregnancy status and comments about how a child would complete our family. Although Jonathan would joke and try to brush it off, saying, "Mom, give us some time," the pressure started to mount. At first, I tried to be patient, understanding that she was excited about becoming a grandmother. But her constant interference began to take a toll. One evening, I confided in Jonathan, "Your mom needs to give us some space. It feels like she's more of a part of our marriage than we are." Jonathan seemed uneasy but dismissed my concerns, chalking it up to her enthusiasm. However, Mary's influence didn't stop with the baby talk. She had opinions on everything: how we managed our money, what we ate, and even our lifestyle choices. One Saturday morning, as Jonathan and I were enjoying breakfast, his phone rang. It was Mary. As usual, Jonathan put her on speaker. "Jonathan, dear, are you both eating well? Remember, a healthy diet is essential for conception," she said, her tone authoritative. Jonathan chuckled and reassured her, while I forced a strained smile, feeling overwhelmed by her constant presence in our lives. The situation only seemed to intensify, and it felt like she was watching our every move, adding stress I never anticipated in our marriage. As her visits became more frequent, one evening she arrived unannounced, carrying a stack of parenting books. "Grace, you should start reading these. It's never too early to prepare," she said, placing the books heavily on the coffee table. I shot a glance at Jonathan, hoping he would intervene, but he just shrugged. "Thanks, Mary, we'll take a look," I replied, trying to maintain some semblance of gratitude. Her visits became routine, almost as if she was monitoring us to ensure we were perfectly primed for parenthood. Each time she brought up the subject of babies, Jonathan would simply nod and echo her sentiments. One night, after yet another of Mary's overbearing visits, I reached my breaking point. "Jonathan, we need to talk," I said, my voice tinged with frustration. "What's up?" he asked, his eyes still glued to the TV. "It's your mom. She's overwhelming us with all this baby talk. We can hardly enjoy our time together without her interference." I expressed my frustration, and Jonathan finally turned to face me. "She's just excited, Grace. She means well." "Excited or obsessed?" I retorted. "It feels like she's the third wheel in our marriage." Jonathan sighed, his gaze flickering to the TV as he muttered, "She's my mom. What do you want me to do? Tell her to stop caring." "It's not about caring, Jonathan. It's about respecting our space and our decisions. Can't you see that?" He remained silent, his attention shifting back to the screen, signaling the end of the conversation but not the issue. If anything, things only escalated. Mary's visits became more frequent, and her advice more intrusive. "You two should take a vacation. Just relax. It'll help with conception, she suggested one day. Another time, she casually mentioned that maybe I should quit my job to reduce stress. It felt as though she was trying to control our lives, with Jonathan passively allowing it. I began to feel like an outsider in my own marriage. The warmth and understanding that had once connected Jonathan and me were fading, overshadowed by Mary's dominating presence. The relentless pressure about having a baby was putting a strain on us both, leading to more arguments and a noticeable absence of the romance that had once filled our home. Still, I clung to the hope that things would get better, that somehow we would find our way back to each other. Then everything changed. One evening, Jonathan came home later than usual, his demeanor somber in a way I had never seen before. I was in the kitchen, hurriedly preparing dinner, when I noticed his state. "Jonathan, is everything okay?" I asked, my voice filled with concern. He collapsed into a kitchen chair, burying his face in his hands. "We need to talk, Grace," he said, his voice heavy with gravity. A chill ran down my spine as I sat across from him, my heart pounding with apprehension. "It's about us trying to have a baby," he began, not meeting my eyes. "Remember those tests we went for?" He finally looked up at me, his eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't immediately place. A few weeks ago, Jonathan and I had decided to undergo a fertility checkup, hoping it might ease Mary's relentless pressure. Now, I could tell by his expression that the results were in. "It's not you, Grace. It's me," he said, taking a deep breath. He explained that the doctor had diagnosed him with a low sperm count, making it unlikely he could father a child. The news hit us both like a punch to the gut, a mix of relief, sadness, and confusion swirling inside me. "What do you mean?" I asked, reaching out to squeeze his hand, hoping to offer some comfort. Jonathan's voice broke as he replied, "I can't father a child, Grace." He pulled his hand away from mine, a gesture that felt like a wall going up between us. "I can't. I won't go through treatment. It's not something I'm prepared to face." I was stunned by his refusal. "But why? If there's even a slight chance, shouldn't we try?" My voice was thick with emotion, desperate to understand. "It's my decision, Grace," he said, his voice firm. "I just can't," he replied firmly, his words cutting through the air with a finality that left no room for negotiation. I couldn't wrap my head around his resistance. The Jonathan I knew was always resilient, willing to face challenges head-on. "Please don't let this drive a wedge between us. We can face this together," I pleaded, my voice desperate. He stood there, avoiding my gaze. "I need some time alone to think," he said, and with that, he left the kitchen, leaving me surrounded by a whirlwind of unanswered questions and rising fears. His outright refusal to even consider any options was baffling. Was his pride really standing in the way of our future together? The following days were strained. Jonathan barely spoke, and when he did, his words were clipped and cold. The growing distance between us felt like a chasm in the foundation of our marriage, widening with every silent meal and unshared night. Then one evening, the fragile state of our union cracked open irreversibly. Jonathan came home late again. I lay in bed, feigning sleep, when I heard him on the phone, speaking in a low voice. "Yes, Mom, I got the results." "No, I don't want treatment. I'll figure something out," he whispered. It was a conversation he hadn't had with me, and it felt like a betrayal, not just of our intimacy but of our vows. Mary's influence was more invasive than I had ever realized. As I lay there, tears streamed down my face, marking the silence of our room. Our home had become a shell of the warm, loving place it once was. We were like strangers, merely sharing the same space, the remnants of our love lost in the shadow of his mother's overbearing influence. Just when I thought our situation couldn't get any worse, life threw me an unexpected curveball. I had been feeling unwell, attributing it to stress, but then I missed my period. Despite the recent news about Jonathan's condition, a part of me dared to hope. I bought a pregnancy test, and sitting in the bathroom, waiting for the result, was agonizing. Then, the indicator showed positive. I was pregnant. For a moment, I was in disbelief. After all the discussions about infertility, this felt like a miraculous glimmer of hope amidst the ruins of our marriage. That evening, as Jonathan walked in, his usual late arrival barely acknowledging my presence, I knew I had to tell him. I took a deep breath and approached him. "Jonathan, we need to talk," I said, my voice trembling with the weight of our future. He looked up, wary. "What is it now, Grace?" "I'm pregnant," I blurted out, the words hanging heavily in the air between us. A long silence followed. Then he let out a bitter, cynical laugh. Pregnant? How? The doctor said I can't. I don't know, but the test is positive. We're going to have a baby, I said, my eyes starting to well up with emotion. He stood up suddenly, anger flashing in his eyes. This is some kind of joke, right? You're trying to trap me. I was stunned. Trap you? Jonathan, I'm telling you we're going to have a baby. Our baby. He paced the room, running his hands through his hair in frustration. No, this can't be. You must have cheated. That's it, isn't it? You cheated on me. His words hit me like a physical blow. Cheated? How can you even say that? I've been nothing but faithful to you. But he wasn't listening. Consumed by his rage and disbelief, he shouted, Get out. I want you out of this house. Jonathan, please, let's talk about this. We can go to the doctor and get a confirmation, I begged, but his anger was overwhelming, and the space between us seemed to grow further with each passing second. I pleaded with him, but it felt like I was speaking to a wall. He stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. That night, I retreated to the guest room, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. The next morning, Jonathan was gone before I woke up, and his mother, Mary, showed up in his place. Her expression was a mix of anger and disgust. You should be ashamed of yourself, Grace, she spat, trapping my son with another man's child. I didn't cheat on Jonathan, I replied, my voice steady but firm. This child is his. Mary let out a cold, mocking laugh. Do you take me for a fool? My son can't have children. You're just a gold digger trying to secure your future. Her words struck me like a slap, but I stood my ground. This is Jonathan's child. I've never been with anyone else. She moved closer, her voice dripping with venom. You have 2 weeks to pack your things and leave. And don't even think about asking for alimony or child support. You won't get a dime from us. Mary's ultimatum was the breaking point. I knew I couldn't continue living in a house filled with her resentment and false accusations. It was time to take control of my life, both for my sake and for the baby's. First things first, I filed for divorce. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary. Jonathan and his mother tried to make it difficult, claiming a share of everything I had. They wanted what wasn't theirs, but I had a strong case. Everything I owned, my savings, my property, was mine long before Jonathan entered my life. Their attempts to take what wasn't theirs failed miserably. As for alimony, I didn't ask for a penny. I wanted no financial ties to Jonathan. No reason for him or his mother to ever interfere in my life again. I was determined to start fresh, free from their toxicity. I found a modest apartment, nothing too fancy but cozy enough to be a new beginning. Packing up my things from the house was bittersweet. Every photo, every piece of furniture held a memory, but I was ready to leave them behind. The day I moved out, Jonathan was conspicuously absent. Maybe he couldn't face me, or perhaps he just didn't care. Either way, it didn't matter. I left the keys on the counter, closing that chapter of my life. The first few nights in my new apartment were the hardest. The silence was suffocating, and the reality of my situation often brought me to tears. But I found comfort in the little life growing inside me. Every night, I spoke to my unborn child, filling the space with whispers of hope and love. Gradually, what had felt like a temporary shelter began to feel like a true home. My daily routines brought a sense of comfort, and my bond with my baby grew stronger with each passing day. One afternoon, as I sorted through some old boxes, I stumbled upon an old photograph of Jonathan and me taken during happier times. A pang of sadness briefly washed over me, but it quickly faded, replaced by a sense of relief. That chapter of my life was firmly behind me. Just then, my phone rang. It was Jonathan. Grace, I've received the divorce papers, he said, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. I'm glad they reached you. Please handle the formalities, I replied, striving to keep my tone calm. There was a long pause before he added, I won't bother you about the baby. You won't hear from me again. It was a cold, final farewell, but in that moment, I found closure. Hanging up, I realized that, in my solitude, I had discovered a strength I hadn't known I possessed. I was ready to face the future, not as Jonathan's estranged wife, but as a strong, independent woman and a devoted mother. One quiet evening, as I sat reading a magazine, Arthur, my 5-year-old son, played with his toys on the floor. Our peace was interrupted by a knock at the door. I opened it to find a woman standing there, her eyes reflecting a familiar sorrow. Hi, Grace. It's been a long time, she said hesitantly. It took me a moment, but then I recognized her as Pamela, a friend from my past life with Jonathan. Pamela? Yes, it has. What brings you here? I asked, my voice cautious. She looked uncomfortable, glancing at Arthur, who peeked curiously from behind my legs. I thought you should know about Jonathan, she said softly. Just hearing his name after all these years sent a shiver through me. What about him? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Pamela sighed. He's not doing well, Grace. After you left, things went downhill for him. He became an alcoholic, remarried a few years ago, and had another child. But that boy was born with disabilities, and Jonathan couldn't handle it. He left them, divorced his wife, and now he's refusing to pay child support. He's in legal trouble. The news struck me, but not in the way Pamela probably expected. I felt a deep sadness, but not for Jonathan. My heart went out to his child and the woman he had left behind. That's terrible, I said softly. Pamela nodded, her voice heavy with concern. I thought you should know, given your past with him. I appreciated her concern but knew I needed to keep my boundaries intact. Thank you for telling me, Pamela, but that part of my life is over. Jonathan made his choices, and they have nothing to do with me or my son, I said firmly. She glanced at Arthur and then back at me, her expression softening. I understand, Grace. I just thought. I offered a small, sad smile. I appreciate it, Pamela, but my focus is on Arthur and our life now. What Jonathan does or doesn't do isn't my concern anymore. Pamela nodded, seeming to understand. I hope you and Arthur are happy. You both deserve it. We are, I assured her, glancing at Arthur, now fully absorbed in his toys. After Pamela left, I closed the door behind her and leaned against it for a moment, taking a deep breath. The past had a way of sneaking up on you, but I was determined to keep it at bay and ensure our future remained bright, untouched by the shadows of days gone by. Later that day, I took Arthur to the park. The air was filled with the laughter of children and the distant barks of dogs at play. I watched Arthur, my heart swelling with pride as he dashed around energetically, his laughter blending with the sounds of joy around us. Suddenly, a familiar voice broke through the happiness, causing my heart to sink. Grace, is that you? I turned to find Mary, my former mother-in-law, striding toward us with a fixed, unwavering gaze on Arthur. Mary, I greeted her coolly. What are you doing here? She ignored the frost in my voice and continued to gaze at Arthur. He's grown so much. He's your son, right? Yes, this is Arthur, I replied, subtly stepping between her and my son. Her eyes sparkled with unsettling eagerness. I was hoping to see him. After all, he's my grandson. A wave of irritation washed over me. And why would you want to see him? I asked, my voice hardening. Well, you know my other grandson, she began, her voice trailing off as her expression darkened. He's not well. He's sick. It's just not the same. I want to be part of a healthy grandchild's life. Her words struck me like a slap, a verbal one. The disdain in her voice for her sick grandson was shocking. Mary, I said, my voice steel hard, you have no right to be part of Arthur's life, not after everything that happened. But Grace, that was all Jonathan's doing, she protested weakly. I shook my head dismissively. You supported him. You turned against me when I was carrying your grandchild, and now you speak with such contempt about your other grandson just because he's sick. That's unforgivable. Mary's face hardened, her eyes narrowing. You can't keep me away from my grandson. I can, and I will, I declared firmly. Arthur doesn't need someone in his life who values people based on their health. He will not be part of your twisted view of family. Mary opened her mouth to argue further, but I cut her off. This conversation is over. Stay away from us, Mary. Your presence is neither wanted nor welcome. Taking Arthur's hand, I walked away, leaving her standing there, her face a mixture of anger and disbelief. As we walked, Arthur looked up at me, his innocent eyes brimming with questions. Mommy, who was that lady? That was someone we used to know, sweetheart, I replied gently. But she's not part of our lives anymore. Later, sitting on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in warm colors, I felt a profound sense of peace. Arthur's laughter echoed as he played, signaling that life had settled into a calm rhythm. The storms of the past had faded, now distant memories. Mom, look what I made. Arthur's voice pulled me from my thoughts as he rushed over, holding a drawing in his hands. It was a picture of the two of us, smiling under a big, bright sun. It's beautiful, Arthur, I said, pulling him into a hug. You're quite the artist. He beamed with pride. I want to put it on the fridge. Let's do that. I smiled, following him inside. As we walked, I reflected on how far we'd come. There was a time when the weight of the past felt crushing, but now it seemed like a distant echo. Later that evening, after Arthur had drifted off to sleep, I sat quietly with a cup of tea, reflecting on the day's events. The phone rang, breaking the silence, and I hesitated before answering. Hello. Hey, Grace. It's Kayla. I just wanted to check in. How are you and Arthur doing? We're doing well, Kayla. Arthur's growing up so fast, I replied, a smile brightening my voice. I heard about your run-in with Mary. Are you okay? Her voice carried a mix of concern and warmth. I sighed. Yes, it was unexpected, but I'm okay. It's just another reminder of the past. I know it's tough, but you've come so far, Grace. You're strong, and you've built a wonderful life for you and Arthur, she said encouragingly. Thanks, Kayla. It means a lot, I replied, feeling a warmth spread through me at her words. We talked for a while longer about everyday things, small comforting snippets of life. This connection with my sister was a vital reminder of the support system I had, even on the toughest days. After hanging up, I walked to the living room, where Arthur's drawing was proudly displayed on the fridge. Looking at it, I realized how much we had both grown. The pain and anger of the past have faded, making room for healing and new beginnings. I tiptoed to Arthur's room, watching him sleep peacefully. Leaning down, I kissed his forehead gently. Good night, my little artist, I whispered softly. Back on the porch, I gazed up at the stars emerging in the night sky. The echoes of the past were indeed fading, their hold on me loosening. In their place was hope, a quiet strength, and the unconditional love between a mother and her son. This new chapter wasn't just about moving on, it was about thriving in the warmth of new beginnings and the comfort of enduring familial bonds.